White's Contender Series is back for Season 9, Week 2, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you my exact predictions for every single fight on the card, so let's get into it. First off, I do want to recap how we did last week. So on picks, we went 4 of 5. I did take a shot on George Mangos to win by sub. That was one of the most boring fights in Contender Series history, and George Mangos, had opportunities to win by sub. We were that close to being perfect on picks. I had a dog shot on Panfarov. That was free. And Buafia decision was also a long shot prop that I liked a lot, and he won by decision. You love to see that. And as for our bets, we only had 2. We had Yuri Panfarov plus 190. We put a unit on that. We won. And then we also had our 2 most confident picks on the card, Buafia and Ty Miller in a parlay, 1 unit plus 132. We won that as well. So pretty good for week 1. Let's see if we can replicate the success for week 2. First fight this Tuesday night is Tommy Cuozzi taking on Ramiro Jimenez. Here's what you should know about Tommy Cuozzi. Tommy Cuozzi has 5 KOs and 3 submissions. He's a proven finisher. He's a well-rounded MMA guy. He's not really a grappler. He's not really a striker. He just kind of goes wherever the fight takes him. One big issue I have with Tommy Cuozzi is a couple. Number 1 is most of his fights on the regional scene took place at Ultimate Battle, which I've never really heard of prior to reading Cuozzi's resume. And he trains at a gym owned by his parents. The gym is called like Cuozzi MMA or something like that. So I don't really like that he trains with those people. I would like him to, be more experienced and get other guys under his belt. He also went 5-4 as an amateur. It's a pretty poor record, pretty long amateur career as well. And if you look at his actual resume, you can see that his opponents look very cherry-picked. Ramiro Jimenez, on the other hand, he's also a proven finisher, but he also has a couple decision wins. I personally like to see a guy with decision wins with finishes as well, because that shows me that they're not just chasing the finish. They do have the ability to win minutes in the fight. He has a grappling base, but often you'll see him stand and trade, just winging shots. Kind of reminds me of Aaron Pico, if I'm being honest. And this guy's minus 370. So kind of reminds you of Aaron Pico, the way he wrestles, the way he mixes in the strikes. Most of his fights took place at Combat Global. I think it's a pretty good regional scene. And like I said, he's Mexican warrior spirit maxing. All right? That's the way I described it. But honestly, when you watch his fights, he's getting clipped. He's getting chinned, he's getting clipped, he's getting rocked, he's getting wobbled, but every single fight he manages to come back and win, or he just wins by brutal fashion early. So a lot of reasons to like Ramiro Jimenez. I don't like that, he fights with his chin in the air a lot. I think that's going to cost him against a real UFC level guy, but I don't think Tommy Cuozzi is a UFC level guy, so I'm going with Ramiro Jimenez to actually finish Tommy early. I'm saying round 1 KO in one of the first exchanges that happens. This fight could get extended, but I'm thinking Ramiro gets the KO here. Next fight on the card is Josh Hokit taking on Guilherme Uriel. Here's what you should know about Josh Hokit. Josh Hokit, he's got 3 submissions, 2 KOs. He was a former NFL player. He played for the 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals, and he fights like he was an NFL player. He's going for tackle-esque takedowns, and his main position to win is to get the fight to the ground. He needs to get the fight to the ground at all costs, and he's fought at Bellator and LFA. He trains at Jackson Wink. You could say that his level of competition has been low, but fighting at Bellator, LFA, and training at Jackson Wink, and you're a grapple-heavy heavyweight, I think that's going to be a recipe for success for Josh Hokit in the UFC. Guilherme Uriel, on the other hand, he's got 3 KOs, 3 subs. He's got a KO loss against Lucas Camacho, and Lucas Camacho fought on the Dana White's Contender Series and got brutally finished by Mario Pinto. Now, I watched back that Camacho fight. Guilherme nearly got the round 1 KO against Camacho, but he completely gassed out. And that has been Guilherme's really only big step up in competition other than regional cans. So if Guilherme is going to try to win this fight, I think he needs to stop the takedowns, which I don't know if he has the ability to do so. And I think he needs to win the striking exchanges against Josh Hokit. But you watch back Josh Hokit's film, and he's not really allowing striking exchanges to be had. He's just always shooting for the takedown. So for all those reasons, it's really hard to fade Josh Hokit So I'm going with him to win by a ground and pound TKO. I think he's going to out-cardio Guilherme and win in rounds 2 or 3. I'm saying ground and pound. It could be a submission, but Guilherme has a grappling background, so I'm not sure if he'll actually get subbed. So I think the safer play is Josh Hokit to win by ground and pound TKO in round 2. Next fight on the card, we got Lewis Lee Scott taking on Kaushik Saikumar. Lewis Lee Scott, 5 KOs, 2 submissions, 2 decisions. This guy can win by any means necessary. He had a very long amateur career. He went 14-2. He's coming off 3 wins against high-level opposition back to back to back. They all had very good records. They were all high-profile fights. He's fought in Aries FC, Anthony Pettis FC, PFL, and Cage Steel. This guy has been around the world basically fighting, and his main training partner is Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy was gassing him up at UFC 319, saying, oh, Lewis Lee Scott, you got to watch out for this guy. But one thing to note, this happened today, is Lewis Lee Scott missed weight by 2.5 pounds, and he looked very upset on the weigh-in scale. So that could have a huge factor, but I don't actually think it will. Now, Kaushik Saikumar, Indian MMA, I'll preface this. Indian MMA is looked at as a gigantic meme. Every time an Indian fighter makes it to the UFC level, they get brutally finished, like every single one of them. Like, there's not one good Indian MMA fighter in the world. That sounds like a lot to say, but honestly, every single one just gets starched because they have like this weird grappling base, and they just can't take a punch. None of them can take a punch. It's not racist. It's just looking at all the data. Every single Indian fighter just cannot take a clean punch. It's like they're almost sparring when they're training. They're not actually hard sparring. They're not really trying to hurt each other. And a big example of this is Kaushik's last fight. He won by KO, yes. But up until the middle knee, he was getting dominated on the feet. He was getting dominated in the grappling. And then he landed a big shot, and the ref immediately jumped in. The guy wasn't even knocked out. He just got hit with a big shot. I mean, granted, Kaushik maybe could have had some ground and pound and finished it, but prior to that, he was getting classed on. So he does train with Ryan Hall and Carlos Vera, so maybe he has like a sneaky heel hook up his sleeve that he can hit on Lewis Lee Scott, but I'm not buying it. I'm going with Lewis Lee Scott, round 1 KO. Sorry for the long breakdown, but I just had to preface that by saying, Indian MMA is just not good. It's sad to see. Maybe this guy can do something, but against Lewis Lee Scott, I sincerely doubt it. Next fight on the card is Brandon Holmes taking on Cam Rowston. Now, Brandon Holmes, he has 3 KOs and 2 decision wins. He is not a grappler whatsoever. He's only trying to strike. He's constantly moving forward. Each one of his 5 professional fights has been at a different promotion, so there's nothing I can really take from that. He also trains at TNT Martial Fitness. I've never heard of that gym. I've heard of a lot of MMA gyms. Never heard of TNT Martial Fitness. But if you look at the tape, Nick Galante was trying to take him down a lot. All right, Nick Galante did not have success. Brandon Holmes shows very good takedown defense on the tape. Now, is that going to work against a guy like Cam Rowston? He has 3 KOs, 7 subs, and 1 decision win. And he did lose by KO once, and he's lost by decision twice, most notably against Torres Finney in the Contender series. Cam Rowston just got controlled basically for 15 minutes by Torres Finney. But when the fight was standing, Rowston was having striking success. He trains at City Kickboxing, but he's mainly a grappler. So I actually like that a lot because that means that he's mainly training striking lately, but all the fights you see is him trying to get the fight to the ground and grapple. So he's having added wrinkles to his striking game, okay? He's got a really good grappling base. He's going to have way more fight experience overall than Brandon Holmes. He's going to be the taller fighter and longer fighter. You saw it at weigh-ins today. Cam Rowston is way bigger than this guy, even though they're both listed as 6'2". And so for all those reasons, I mean, I think there's enough there to take the dog shot. I mean, Cam Rowston is pretty durable on the feet. He does have a KO loss, but other than that, he's pretty durable. I think he's going to fight this smart, and if he does, he's going to activate takedowns, go to the wrestling early and often, and I think he's just going to win, a decision. I think he can also outpoints Brandon Holmes on the feet. Brandon Holmes is just a pressure-forward fighter, but when he's the one getting pressured, no one really knows what happens. So I'm going with the dog shot. I'm going with Cam Rowston. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure you leave a like and tell me in the comments who your favorite underdog of Dana White's Contender Series Season 9 Week 2 is. I obviously am picking Cam Rowston, so I'm interested to see if anyone has any other takes. And the main event of Week 2 is Manuel Exposito taking on Jose Delano. Here's what you should know. Manuel Exposito, he's Argentinian. I can just sum up the whole summary by saying he's Argentinian, because most Argentinian fighters we've seen so far fight the same way. Francisco Prado, Esteban Ribovic, now Manuel Exposito, they all fight the same way, which is constantly pressuring forward, only throwing big shots, leaving your chin wildly in the air, having great durability, and mixing in takedowns very often. Now, Manuel Exposito, he differs from Prado and Ribovic because he's prioritizing the takedown. While they try to prioritize striking, Manuel is trying to get the fight to the ground. Now, there is a big problem with Manuel, because I watched his most recent fight. He was fighting this 14-10 Mexican fighter, and he had the guy's back for almost the entire fight. And not once did he get close to a sub. And so, if I think Manuel is going to win this fight, I must think he's going to try to submit Delano, or at least ground and pound Delano to a victory, because that's the only way he wins. Delano, on the other hand, he can win by KO, sub, decision. 4 KOs, 5 subs, 6 decisions. His losses are by each of those methods as well. KO loss, decision loss, sub loss. So he can win by any way, but he can also lose by any way. He's very well-rounded in my opinion. He has elite BJJ if the fight hits the mat. Every time I've seen Delano get taken down, he either gets up immediately or he reverses the position. That's not good for a guy like Manuel Exposito, especially against a Brazilian. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Argentinian Jiu-Jitsu. The only way I take Exposito in this fight to win is if I think Argentinian Jiu-Jitsu is going to be better, and I just don't see it happening. I'm taking Jose Delano by round 3 KO. I think Exposito is going to gas himself out. That's happened in a lot of his fights. You see him breathing out of his mouth very heavily because the takedowns, stop working. The winging shots start missing. And I think Delano, with his big experience gap, having fought Gabriel Santos, having training at Brazilian top team, yeah, I just think he's going to land a KO, and I'm saying late because I think Exposito will gas. And my final predictions for Season 9, Week 2, they are to my left, or your right, I'm not sure. Jose Delano by round 3 KO. We're taking Cam Rowston, the only underdog pick on the card, to win by decision. We're taking Louis Lee Scott by KO, Josh Hokit by KO, and Ricardo Jimenez by KO. Lots of finishes I'm predicting on this card, other than maybe a Cam Rowston grappling masterclass. Cam Rowston could even find the finish on the ground. I'm not, I wouldn't be super surprised if that were to happen. So hopefully these picks work out, and let's have a good one.